that's not even like a store manager. That's above a store manager, having to drive and look over these stores. And they offered her $20 an hour.
Oh, that's awful.
And I'm like, well, what are they paying the cashier? The American Dream. What is it, and is it dead or alive? Here are a few quotes from some people you'll recognize and see what they say about the American Dream. Bernie Sanders says, for many, the American dream has become a nightmare. And Barack Obama, he says, we may come from different places and have different stories, but we share common hopes and one very American dream. Kamala Harris says, the American dream belongs to all of us. This is Martin Luther King Jr. He says, the American dream reminds us that every man is heir to the legacy of worthiness. And I love that word, worthiness. And this is Ronald Reagan. He says, and I love this one, the American dream is not that every man must be level with every other man. The American dream is that every man must be free to become whatever God intends he should become. Donald Trump says, sadly, the American dream is dead, but if I get elected president, I will bring it back, bigger and better than ever. I say a lot, I 100% agree with Ronald Reagan. We all are called to be, we're created for God's purpose, and the enemy wants to keep us from ever achieving that purpose. And I say the American dream is worth fighting for. I'm Mindie Molina, and this is the Mindie Molina Show. So I'm very excited that I have some very special guests on today who are creating the American dream. They're a young family and they are starting their lives together with their precious daughter who's born on my birthday, Everly. So I want to introduce you to Holly and Dalton and their brand new baby, Everly. So welcome to the show. Thank you guys both for coming and for being a part of the show and sharing your story because it really impacted me, and I think it's a great way to tie in all the other hurdles and barriers that we face as Americans, and that it's not just about money, right? There's a lot of things that are keeping us from giving us financial freedom. Mm-hmm. And so I want to talk to you guys a little bit about that today. So thank you for coming and sharing your story.
Thanks for having us.
I'm going to start with Dalton, and this is kind of a deep question, just to kind of get a feel for you, is that what would make you feel like you were living the American dream? So this is kind of like a perfect day. I do this exercise with people where we talk about what is your perfect day. But if you fulfilled what you believe you want to be as a man, as a husband, as a father, and now you're there, you've made it, right?
Yeah.
So my question to you is this. Where would you be? You'd wake up that morning. Where would you be and who would you be with?
Well, for start, I'd definitely be with my family.
I hope so. Better be with me.
Yeah.
I definitely would be with them, and I think a lot of it would come down to not necessarily a lack of worry. People always worry about things, right? But a sense of security, I think, is really what it comes down to. Mm-hmm. Knowing that tonight there's going to be food on the table, and that when I put my head down to sleep, that my one kid right now or kids later is safe, and you know my wife's in bed next to me, and we get to wake up and do it again the next day, and just without the worry and you know, with the security, like I was saying, I think is really what it is. Because what it looks like, all the little things as far as house, car, things like that all comes and goes. Mm-hmm. But I think if I as a man can, you know, have a family that loves each other, takes care of each other, and moves forward in the direction God has us, that's all it is.
That is the American dream, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I say the American dream is different for everyone, but the majority would say exactly what you just said. Like your perfect world is waking up and having, you said two things. You want your family to be safe. Everyone in this country is entitled to safety.
Yeah.
You know, I want to be able to run down the road. I love to run. And I think that just being able to go to bed at night and not worry about my kids in mind, safety, and your girls are protected. Like, that's huge. And also financial security, the basics. When you were answering that question, were you thinking about like a mansion on the water, or are you thinking about a jet? Like, sometimes that what we consider the dream is just the basics.
Yeah.
20 million people cross the border illegally, according to BBC or something I read. And like, they didn't just come to vote, right? They came for that because of that. They want to be safe, they want security, and they want to own that, right? That financial security. So if you could have your perfect day, what would you be doing? What would you guys be doing?
It probably would not be working, but that's part of the game. But I mean, the perfect day would be really anything that they would want to do, anything that we would want to do.
What are some of the hobbies? Like, what do you guys like to do for fun?
So, going to
Loves history. So
I love
any
history.
museums.
If there's a museum, I'm there.
Nice.
Museums are big. I know she loves going to parks and walks and stuff. So any sort of water, somewhere where we can go and just enjoy what's around us.
Yeah.
Nature.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. So let's say you have that perfect day, and the next day you wake up, like, having the financial security, having a great day together. How does it make you feel as a husband and a dad?
Fulfilled.
Yeah.
Very fulfilled, and like, no, I don't want to say successful, because success is different in anyone's view, but I think just feeling that it's complete, that it's done, and like I said before, that it's moving in the right direction, and that it's not something that I'm constantly fighting, that it's just complete.
Yeah. Yes, I love that. How did you meet, Holly? You tell the love story of you and Dalton.
Okay. So we both went to a Bible college out in California, and we really started off as friends. He would help me with like my math homework, and I would come to him with all my like guy drama, all my guy trouble. And he was like, when I was, dating certain people, he'd be like, the guy's an idiot. You need to break up with him. And I'm like, okay, whatever. Like, we're just friends. But then, we were friends for probably about a semester, and then kind of grew into more. We started talking and dating, and then we did some long distance. I went back to Wisconsin to get my bachelor's degree, and then he stayed in Washington with his family, and then ended up going to Arizona for school, and that's when
I went to
kinda
Wisconsin there for a little while.
yeah.
Just a quarter
some
more
long
and date some more and
distance.
stuff. Yeah.
So when did you realize, like, I love this guy? Like, this is...
See, I will say, a lot of people ask, like, for the moment, and I say it's almost like getting on the freeway. It's not like an instant all at once. You're going like 90 miles an hour.
Yeah,
know?
because
it was
you
just
were
kind of
friends.
like a slow
It evolved.
cruise. But yeah, it was just kind of like when we were just starting to become friends and talking and everything, and he would talk to. I would see him like just making conversation with another girl, and I'd be like, "What is he talking to her about?" I would just find myself getting really jealous.
Oh yeah. Yep.
So I think that's when I probably knew I better lock him down.
Aww. That's beautiful. Thanks
Yeah.
for sharing that story.
Of course.
So now, how long are you married?
Yeah.
We're married just over 2 years,
Okay.
but we've been together, I want to say like 8.
Since 2017. Wow. So
Okay.
about 8 years. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, congratulations.
Well, thank you.
And do you mind if I ask how old you are?
Yeah.
I'm 27.
27
I'm 30.
and 30. And Everly is how many months?
She
November?
not
December?
like
2 months?
Yeah.
2-ish, yeah. Like 8 weeks. Yeah.
So then, and you're in the prime time of where this all starts, right? Financial planning. And we met because you came in looking for a financial plan. Like, hey, here's our situation. Get us on the right track. And the most important thing that a person can do for their finances is to get organized. And that's step one. And that's where we're at. So I have every intention on getting you organized and helping you pursue your own American dream financially, and doing everything that I can to help you succeed with that. But I do have to disclose that you're not clients, right? We just met. And because it's important for me to have guests on the show that are not clients, because then it would be considered testimonial. So I want you to be able to share your story without that. Compliance and regulation can really beat up a lot of freedoms. But they're necessary too, because there's a lot of bad guys out there. So I want to talk a little bit about your story and just what have been your struggles so far. Like if you could say these are the setbacks that we've had, what would they be?
Yeah, I mean,
Probably the first one was cancer.
yeah, the first one would be
The C
cancer.
word,
Yeah.
cancer,
Yeah.
right?
The word you never want to hear. Exactly. Yeah,
Nobody
it was
likes that word.
super. It was a very big surprise. I think is something you never expect, especially at 27 was when I found out. We were dating at the time. We weren't married, and it was one of those things where going through, you'd have the small dramas in comparison,
Right.
and then you find out something like
Yeah.
that. And we were separated at the time, not in our relationship, but I was down in
Long
Arizona
distance,
going to school for motorcycle mechanics, and she was up in Wisconsin working and living with her family and everything. And it was just one of those things where it was not expected, and talk about a wrench in the works, right?
Right.
Like that's a big deal.
I mean, we were planning our wedding at that point.
Mm-hmm.
I was coming down. He found out in early March.
Yeah.
At the end of March, I was planning to come down there, and that's when our engagement pictures were all set. So,
Oh yeah, she had it planned out.
Yeah.
yeah.
Kind of like I'm visiting you this date, so you should
You
probably
have this
propose.
many days
Yes.
to propose.
Here's your window of opportunity.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. So when you say engagement photos, you're talking about for him to actually propose and the photographer to catch it.
Oh yeah.
No.
Oh.
it
No,
was
you
just-
mean after.
Yes,
Okay.
yes,
Afterwards,
after.
yeah.
So, like,
Just
hey,
kinda
this
do it
is
all
when
in-
the engagement photos are. So you have like this, like I think it was like a Sunday and a Monday. So
Yeah.
you got to get it done.
Yeah. I know things are different. Like with my, from my generation, I'm 45, so 20 years at least ahead of you guys. Like we thought we were really doing it big, but I mean, wow, your generation, like there is a lot that goes into it. Like the whole experience of getting married from beginning to end is way more than just like one day.
Yeah.
There's
Oh,
all
yeah.
these events that,
Yeah.
and I love it because I love to celebrate. I mean, if there's a reason to have a party, I'm in, and I love that you celebrate love
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
so long. Like there's nothing wrong with it. It can be costly, but
It can be,
you know,
yeah.
you get.
Yeah.
I'm not one to say don't spend any money, right? Like don't
Yeah.
buy the coffee, don't do this. I think you have to have a budget, but we want to celebrate life.
Yeah.
There's nothing like what else are we going to do? Celebrate her, celebrate your love for each other, celebrate your family and your future. And so I think it's great.
Yeah.
Your generation celebrates a lot, and that's my style.
Oh yeah. You do.
Okay, so that's a major setback, right? Cancer
Yes.
is a really big deal. And I mean, I lost my brother this past year, June. He was 45, died of breast cancer. And there's just no reason for that.
Yeah.
And so we're going to talk more about that too, as being part of a hurdle that's coming up more and more in a younger generation. People like you that are just getting started. Like these diseases, really, we shouldn't be seeing that until we're older.
Yeah.
Yeah, this shouldn't be one of the things that we need to prepare for as a young couple. Cancer shouldn't be on the table, okay?
Yeah.
Okay, so now let's talk a little bit about your jobs, your qualifications, like your aspirations. What is it on a career path? Things that, like, what are you doing now?
Yeah. So for me, right now, I sell motorcycles and things like that. I'm in the power sports industry.
You mentioned you went to school from
I did.
Mechanics?
For the mechanics side of it. Now, with the cancer, that changed me to the sales side.
okay.
Just with some of the things that came from that, it was easier to do the sales side of it long term.
From not being sick. What?
Yeah. So when I was sick,
Just like fine motor
the
skills.
chemo
Oh, okay.
would mess up
Yeah.
my fine motor skills. The neuropathy, my fingers weren't working quite as well right after, things like that. So where I'd have to be turning, small things on a bike, I couldn't do that anymore.
Yeah. So now you had some limitations.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep. So I had some limitations, but I still wanted to be around it, right? I love motorcycles. I love the joy of it, the fun. But it's something that I had to look at it from a different view. You always hear about the sales guy at the car lot, the used sales guy, and I'm like, oh, I don't want to do that. And
I sold cars in college.
did you really?
I know. Yeah. So I was a car salesman and I absolutely loved it because I just loved helping people like get a new ride. Like,
Yeah.
it's fun to
Yeah.
get a new car. It's like a new, I label my life sometimes. I look back like, oh, well, that's when I had the Dodge Ram, like, or that's when I had my Jeep. You like,
Absolutely.
do that.
Yeah.
So it was just fun. Or like a new family comes in and they need a bigger car. But I struggled where I got in trouble was because and I think it's different today. We have so much access to buying vehicles, but I started to realize the more money I made was attached to how much more they had to pay for the car, and then it just got to where I couldn't sell a car because I was having internal guilt, like,
Right.
oh, well, don't tell them that. Like,
Yeah.
I was advocating for the buyer, which feels good and wonderful, but then I was, not making any money at selling cars. So my sales, like, I was doing really great and making great money. And then I figured out, my ethical thing triggered, and I was done. So I had to get out of the industry.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's absolutely it. And that's kind of like what I was saying. Like, you get that kind of weird, like, oh,
Dirty used car salesman feeling. Yeah. Like,
and unfortunately, it's a very small amount of that I've seen in the power sports industry. Like, I'm lucky for that, but I thought that, so I never wanted to go to sales. But then I did.
Are you enjoying it?
I am. I found some pretty quick success with it and did pretty well. And I was in Harley Davidson and stuff, and it was great. I do more multi-line stuff now, so BMW, things like that. But it's good. It's okay. It's like you were saying, it's different now.
Yeah.
Everything is competing with whatever's happening with the government, the insurance, the all the different little things that.
Explain. No,
Yeah.
I don't know.
So
What's
so if a lot of right now you see people will come in and they can't move forward with it because their rates are too high. And
interest rates are too high.
Interest
for
rates
the
are too high,
financing,
yeah.
or they can't afford it because of the rates.
Yeah, and you're seeing people with very, very good credit coming in and getting like mid-teens interest rates, and you're like, wait, what?
Right.
And so it slows down us.
What would you say is the ratio of a cash buyer versus finance?
So in my industry, I'd say when I was with Harley, it was a lot more financing. When you go to the multi-line side, the metric side, it's a lot bigger of a spread. And I think that's because Harley tends to be a higher priced bike. And when you come in for a dirt bike or a side-by-side or a small boat even.
Well, do you feel like Harley probably attracts more retirees that are kind of on the later in life, and you have younger people on there?
I think so. Yeah,
I
would think so. I think they definitely do. The younger people tend to go towards the metric sport bikes, and they want to go a million miles an hour down the road. So like that definitely happens more.
Exactly.
But yeah, I think part of it too, though, is with Harley, there's a lot of things you can do with it. So someone will come in for a Harley and they'll want to add this part and that part and this accessory, and then now all of a sudden their bill's a little big, and they're like, well, maybe I'll keep some in the bank.
Yeah.
So
what about you, Holly? What's your specialty?
So for work,
Yes.
so I got my bachelor's degree in public health, but when he kind of went through his cancer, we were planning to move kind of in like in a different direction, but I kind of needed a job that would let me work remote because I didn't know how long we were going to stay, if he was going to be able to finish school, and where we would end up. So I just worked like virtually in like operations management for like a flooring company. So that's kind of still what I do. I haven't been able to do anything with my degree yet, but hopefully when maybe she's a little bit older, I can give back to that.
So obviously becoming a mother is like impacts your career.
Yes.
Yes, 100%. I mean, it's worth it, but it is a setback. And there are things about, even for me, like childcare is expensive, and there has to be a trusted person that's going to take care of your baby if you're going to work or working from home.
Yes. Thankfully, I'll be able to watch her while I'm working from home. I'm really happy for that. I won't have to outsource anything in regards to like taking care of her.
Good. But, that's huge. And that's really helping a lot of women, I think. A lot of moms. Yeah.
I can't imagine
being able to work from home. Remote opportunities are coming that those weren't really around 10 years ago as much.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. That's something COVID helped.
Yeah. Seriously.
Yeah. One time I was on a call and this girl was working not for me, but kind of like a wholesaler, right? So I'm doing business with her, and her husband comes in, and she's working from home, and he whispers something to her ear, and she's like, oh, I gotta go. And I'm like, is everything okay? I'm just on the computer, like, are you okay? She's like, he just got home from work. He thought I was picking up the baby, and I thought he was picking up the baby, and no one's picked up the baby. And so I was like, talk to you tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah.
So she went, that's good. So the American dream traditionally refers to anyone, regardless of their background or where they're from, has the ability to move up or level up financially and in an upward trend, as long as they're willing to put the work in. And some of the barriers that have hindered that are things like wages, rising education costs. I know you both went to college, hidden political agendas, and a health crisis you obviously are experiencing, and job market changes, like having remote opportunities, which might not necessarily be a barrier. So of those, which do you feel like have been the biggest barriers for you?
Is college. And the way I say that is, it used to be that piece of paper was sought after, and I think it still is for the sake of hiring someone. But sometimes that, like, I've seen and talked to people that are like, that did nothing for me. I have all this debt and I don't have anything to show for it.
Right.
And I think what I've seen and how I came up in different industries and things, and now I'm kind of settled into one, but it's one of those things where I think if you're not kind of dialed into something and you don't have a lot of training in something, then you're very limited. That's factual. Hard work does do a lot, but it doesn't do everything, unfortunately. I think it is how it's set up now.
I know. I believe that in this country, this is the United States of America. Okay. This is where people treaded through Mexico and wherever, like the path they had to take to cross that border was worth it to them. This is the United States. Anyone willing to work a 40-hour week should be able to be financially independent. Okay. We're not trying to live in the world's biggest house and do all these things. We're just trying to have security and safety for our family, food on the table. Just like you said, it was so perfect. These are the things that we want. And if we're willing to work for it, we shouldn't have to ask for help, whether it's from family or friends, whether it's debt, whether it's the government. We shouldn't have to do that. And what there has to be a balance between what things cost and how much you earn. Now, my own personal experience with my brother, Judas, his wife, had a job. And what are some of she works in retail, right? So like Dollar General, Big Lots, these are these small town stores that people shop. So now she's at a Sally's. But she interviewed at, she was offered a job by CVS doing kind of like a regional manager. She'd be over 4 stores, might have been 5, at least 4. And she lived central to those. And so she'd be overseeing those. So that's not even like a store manager. That's above a store manager, having to drive and look over these stores. And they offered her $20 an hour. And I'm like, well, what are they paying the cashier or the people stocking the shelves? So as her, sister-in-law and like, it's one of my best friends and financial advisor, I'm like, absolutely not. And we continued on this fight, and for 6 months looking for her to get, because Big Lots, she worked at Big Lots, but Big Lots is going bankrupt. So we had to replace that. And it's just been there's no way that she's going to be able to do it on her own. Somebody's going to have to supplement income for her. And she lives in a small rural town, cute little house. Her mortgage is like $1,100 and some dollars, and that includes homeowners and real estate taxes.
Nice.
And she doesn't have any debt. I gave her my car. All she has to do is pay her home or her mortgage, auto insurance, electricity, internet, phone bills, feed her dogs, feed herself. And it's just, the math doesn't add up. She did end up getting a job, but still the math doesn't add up. And it was a real big eye opener for me. Like, wait, this is not okay. This is not okay. like anyone willing to work like she is, and she's a really hard worker who has a great resume, you know, and she's struggling. And so she's not even at the bottom tier, right? Like, so it's really scary for me that, like you said, the balance, it needs to be a balance. And then when you add, because the one thing about her is she has climbed the ladder, right? She's like worked her way up. She doesn't have a college education. So guess what she doesn't have? Debt. So now let's talk about a woman 27 years old that just wants that job and wants that house and that lifestyle, but also has $60,000 worth of debt. How much college debt do you guys?
All our college debt is on my side.
Yeah.
So she was super blessed to have grandparents that came up in an industry that they were very successful in. He designed like combines and farm equipment and stuff like that. Yeah. Very Wisconsin-y. But,
Very Midwestern.
Yeah. So her and her siblings and her cousins were well taken care of there, right? And that right there was their American dream for sure.
Yeah.
They were able to set up something for generations.
Yeah, my grandpa wasn't able to go to college, so yeah, he worked and designed like the biggest corn picker at the time, and then set aside a trust for all of his grandkids, like to be able to go to college.
Yeah, and
that's
for
what
that
it's
to be
for.
paid for.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And you're right. That's it.
Yeah.
And so so
It's all on me.
you had to
got
pull
some
your own
debt,
weight. Me too. Listen, I was like, if I'm going, I'm paying. I worked nights. I worked through college, and I still had debt when I got out. But at that time, I mean, literally my student loans after 4 years of college and me working to pay things, I think I owed like $12,000, which is nothing compared to my niece and nephews.
Incredible.
And your generation. Like, what do you say on average your friends and you have in debt?
I mean, when I talk to them, you know, in the conversations that we have, it's 6 digits.
Yeah,
A lot of times.
hundreds of thousands
it's
of
6
dollars.
It's
digits.
insane.
Yeah. It's incredible. And
And what do you think, like, monthly, what portion of that is their monthly outgo? Like, part of their monthly budget that they have to pay? Because these loans, it's time. You got to start paying them.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen some of them, they'll get some loans that will go out forever. Student loans, they'll put out forever. So sometimes it's not debilitating of a deal, but other people, it is a hefty portion of their
I know.
outgo.
So for me, I've seen hundreds of thousands of dollars, like you, in the hundreds, just over 100,000. And I can think of 3 people off the top of my, head. One, she was in love with this boy, and who they would have gotten married, but she had, I would say, 70,000 in debt, which was a huge payment. And then the boyfriend is like, I just want to marry into that. I don't want to take that on. And so that ended because of her.
Because of that?
Because of her college education. He wasn't college educated, and he was like, no thanks.
Yeah.
Right? So then, and then the other 2 are a couple. They both have great educations, and but big part of they're in the same situation. Big part of their ongoing thing. It's like, well, we want to buy a house, we want to have a baby, but we want to get this debt paid off first. It's like the emotional burden, the baggage that it has on them. It really makes them feel like they can't do these other things
They can't
until
move forward.
Yeah.
they can't move forward until. And I really feel like it's a stress that's taking its toll on them that they really don't need. I mean, my payment was like $110, and it was deferred for like a year and a half, I think. So I look at that and I'm like, this is not okay. Yeah. It is a huge problem. In my personal opinion, and I asked you about finance and like people going into purchase, which that's like an extracurricular
For
purchase,
sure. It's a toy. Yeah.
I like it. So most people that come are probably a little more set to financially to be able to take on that next thing. It's like finally you can buy a boat, or finally you can buy the motorcycle. Or Susan's boyfriend, he bought an airplane.
He just buys airplanes.
He buys airplanes. He loves to buzz around. He has airplanes like
Amazing.
you have motorcycles.
Oh, perfect.
No, he has one. He has one.
So then he does have airplanes like I have motorcycles.
Well, yeah, but it's like a hobby for him,
Right,
you know?
right.
It's like, so But the point I was making is that I believe that purchasing power cannot be based on a loan amount, right? So when you apply for college, it's like, how much did you get approved for? The transaction is not between supply and demand. Like what price should be depicted by that? Like what is the demand for it? And that adjusts based on the demand, but it's not. The transaction is made between the lender and the institution.
Yep.
And they depict the price based on the loan amount that you later have to pay. And it's the same thing in the car industry. You go in, who's providing the lending for you? It's in-house financing, right? The finance desk, the finance guy. And they want to see what they can get you approved for and then figure out what you're going to pay. And that just can't, that's always going to create this vicious cycle of financial problems for Americans. It's not just one person. I mean, this is the American way. And how do you fix that?
Yeah.
So I know credit card debt is also a big deal. Debt is a huge crisis. Credit card debt. So Donald Trump says he's going to limit or proposes to limit credit card rates. And I think that would be huge. It's like, how are interest rates were so low, like 2%, 1%, yet your credit card rate's still 26.99.
Yeah.
How is that not criminal?
Yeah.
And I don't understand, like, I don't know that much about it other than I know how it impacts people. Like, so I don't know how to fix that problem, but I know it's a problem.
Oh, for sure.
You know, and I know that it's really difficult when you have revolving debt like that to never have an end. At least if you have a personal loan, it has an end. There's a term. It's like, keep paying this payment and 5 years from now it'll be over, at least. So I really hope that there's resolve in that, in what I call debt crisis. Your generation is experiencing it with college.
Yeah.
And it's not just a political play, like to pay off that debt or to absorb it. To me, it was a bubble, and it's based on that vicious lending cycle. Not the economy should be founded on supply and demand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's touch on political agendas, and then I want to play some videos that I have. So as far as political agendas, do you ever feel like, is there anything in your wheelhouse that you've ever felt like, well, you've been cited by the government? Like sometimes I ask people, let me ask you this might be easier, is if you had to rely on something like someone for help, would you rely on the government? Would you prefer to rely on the government, maybe a personal benefactor like your grandfather, or maybe like a nonprofit third party? Where the two of you see those lined up in reliability?
Yeah, I think a lot of it at first, like the family side of it, right? If a family's put forth the effort and put something aside for you, fantastic, right? That's their gift.
Yeah.
That's the best route. I think the government should be last. I think in between, if you want to put in a nonprofit, third party, Good Samaritan, what have you,
Yeah.
that makes sense. But the government should be last. The government, I think, shouldn't be having to be everyone's crutch. But basically the world they've made, it's kind of like that now.
Yes.
Everything is based off of debt, but also debt hurts you. So it's kind of a two-edged sword, I think.
So here's my question. Can President Trump and his team bring hope back to the American dream? We've touched on a lot of barriers, hurdles that you guys have personally experienced. And can there be enough change to undo some of these issues, whether it's debt, whether it's health, savings, and creating generational wealth? I'm a really big advocate of that, especially as a Christian. I believe that God is calling us to create generational wealth, and the enemy is calling us not to. Because I really started seeing this trend when I'm sitting with retirees and they're saying, we are not worried about our children. It's like a line, like, we're not worried about leaving anything to the kids. It's like, okay, what? I understand it doesn't have to be the number one priority, but to just have that be like what you want to lead with, to let me know as an advisor, it was like God was showing me, hey, we got a problem here. People are no longer interested in the next generation, and guess who is? the enemy, right? Satan is very strategic with his approach on things, and it's very easy to build that wedge. So I think bridging that gap is huge, and commend your grandfather for doing that for you. Look what an impact it's already made in your life. That is going to obviously spew over into her life. So generational wealth is important. So can the American dream, I believe the American dream is founded on freedom, and a big part of that is financial freedom, right? And it's not specifically about having like the biggest house or having things like motorcycles or boats or any of that. And it doesn't even have to be 3 kids and a house and a wife, right? It's about, what is it for you? What makes you feel like you're free to choose what you want to do? So my son, when he was 4, he tells me, I have the video, if I can plug it in the YouTube, I will. But he says, I'm videoing him, and I'm like, what do we need? What do we need to get? He's like, well, we need a mansion. We need a yacht. And he's just thinking, he's like, we need a yacht, and we need a jet, and then we need a McLaren, and we need a Lambo and a Ferrari. And he goes, and what's that other supercar? Oh yeah, a Bugatti. And he's like, and a dog, and that's it.
That's it. Simple.
I mean,
That's perfect.
We got it. And I was like, all right, mommy will I'll do what I can, like no pressure. But so
awesome.
the American dream is different for everyone. And the new generation, the millennials, we're seeing definitely like this disconnect from physical things. They actually want physical freedom. They don't even want to own property. They want to travel. They want to work from Brazil, work from Spain, work from Europe. Like, they don't even want property. And they're not really concerned about saving. They want here and now and ongoing. They want passive income. They have figured out that income is more important than a big bank account, because they've seen their parents, grandparents just hoard the money, but then never get to really enjoy life. So there's really this shift in mindset about what is the actual American dream. It's not necessarily everybody feels, I would say the majority are right in line with Dalton, but it's interesting to know that there are other things. But again, anyone that works 40 hours a week deserves to have the freedom to choose, right? And the freedom of not relying on anyone. Not having to rely. The truth is, you should have been able to go to college, no problem. Yeah. With or without that help. That help could have bought you a home. Could have been used in other ways. Yeah. The cost of education is it's a problem.
Yeah.
So, let me get in here. I want to play this clip. This is about what I believe we're going to talk about money, the money aspect of it. Finances, investing, and one of the issues that I think is a big deal. And I'm going to play this for you. You know who Vivek is?
BlackRock, State Street, Vanguard.
There we
Just
go.
those 3 control about $20 trillion, about as much capital as the U.S. GDP. But they use it to not only invest and provide passive investment exposure to the U.S. market, but also to vote for policies like racial equity audits at Apple and Home Depot, even when the boards of those companies didn't want to adopt them. Scope 3 emissions caps at companies like Chevron, whose boards did not want to adopt them until majority of shareholders, and I use shareholders in air quotes because they're not the actual capital owners, but they're registered as the shareholders, tell these firms to do. So this is a big problem.
So this is a big problem. It's a big problem in our country. And the one reason that it's a big problem is because there's 4 different types of power. One is institutional power. So they're using their institutional power to bring about change. And it doesn't matter what kind of change. The reality of it is they have the power. Okay? So how much power, when you think about an institutional power that's worth $20 trillion or more, how much power do you really feel like Holly and Dalton have?
Yeah.
None. How can you?
Yeah. How do you stand up against that?
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to tell you how. There's a thing called collective power. And collective power is when a large group of people come together and they unite. And then they become the power. And they as a unity have power. So I'll tell you, let's just look at these numbers. The other power we'll talk about, did I say 4? There's 3. So this is some numbers. And this is only from 2021, so it's probably grown. But there were approximately 104 million working class Americans. So 104 million Dalton and Hollies in the world. Not in the world, in the country, our country. And let's say that each of them have an average, let's see. Ooh, no, this is updated. 164 million Americans are currently employed based on data from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics from early 2023. So 164 million people, that's 62% of our population are working. They're at work right now while we're hanging out here. So they hold, out of that amount of workers in their 401ks and their IRA accounts, they hold 35 trillion. 35 trillion. So they actually hold more power than the institutional powers. So there is a collective that if there became unity among, and you know, when I'll show this picture in the YouTube channel, but for the radio, there's a picture that is of the United States, and it's a map of the counties that voted, and almost the entire country is red. Mm-hmm. Have you seen that? Mm-hmm. Okay, and so for my message for that is never forget, because this is the collective power, and the power that we hold, if united, because right now financially we're not united. The truth is, the majority of our investments, if you look at what's in your 401k, and even though right now at this stage in the game you think, well, my 401k is nothing, it really is. It truly is. It's the penny and the dollar. Okay, without your penny, we don't have a dollar. And that's the collective power that we have as Americans. The working man, which actually it's funny, if you call it the working class is labeled as people who really are almost in poverty. And then the middle class, like the words that they use to label can be misleading, but all I can say is the majority, okay? The Dalton and the Hollies of the world that are just trying to live the American dream. Those people collectively hold the power. And they made that statement in November of last year, is that we are fed up with the barriers. We are fed up with the hurdles that we have to climb across in order to just sleep in peace. You know, what you're asking for is not anything extravagant. You're just asking for financial security for your family, to be able to have more children and to go to bed at night knowing, hey, we're good. That's not too much. That's called peace of mind. But we're having a hard time getting there. And I witness it all the time when I sit with people. I see how the struggles are impacting people emotionally, and the stress, not to mention the health. I mean, the health thing is so bad. So when you have Vivek, and I'm hoping, my hope for our country is that this team that, I don't even say that Donald Trump put together, but that came together. This team that came together, because I don't believe that the American people voted in one man. The American people voted in a team of people. There was people that voted Trump because they believe in RFK. There are people that voted for Trump because they believe exactly what Vivek just told us. It's a problem. There are people that voted Trump because of Elon, who people in our military understand that we can't be in old computer systems and databases. Technology, we have to be leaders in technology or we're not going to be safe. And then, who's the fourth person I'm forgetting? There's another one. Maybe it's you. I wrote them down. Anyways, those three alone, well, that's 4. Donald, RFK, and Vivek, and then Elon. So I think those are some really super powerhouses that could make a difference in our country and keep us from continuing this ongoing cycle. The next one I want to talk about is make America healthy again. So let's talk about, we talked about the unity, and I believe that if in our 401ks, just to close that out, with the 401ks, if you go back and you look when you get your statement, or any of our listeners, look at your statement and see who you're invested in. Because Vanguard, Blackstreet, and BlackRock, I mean, they hold probably 1,000 funds between the three of them. And they are a huge powerhouse. This is a huge powerhouse controlling things that we are literally giving them our money. We're giving, they're using your 401k, yours, mine, everybody's in our country. And that is that's where they're gaining their power. And if we continue to only invest, which if you look in your 401k, you'd be shocked that it's not obvious. You have to do a little research. You have to say, it's not going to say, hey, you are invested in this. They all have different brands, different labels. But if you just say, who owns this fund, you will see, oh, they have my money. Oh, my money and your money, my money too. Your money? Yes, our money. And it's driving, but they're not, what I don't see them doing is things that are going to actually affect your life and take away some of these issues. So I'm hoping that we're going to see that change. And when I saw this video with Vivek, I was like, yes. It was the first time I ever heard anyone talk about it openly. And that made me hopeful that maybe we would see change in the retirement accounts, because American workers are contributing, but yet their accounts are not accumulating like other investors' accounts. And my question is, why? And no more. No more. We can be the beginning of that change because we hold the power. We just haven't realized it. And all we have to do is unite.